Chase Briscoe wins a wild Talladega round of 8 playoff race, now locking in 2 Joe Gibbs Racing playoff cars into the championship 4. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to Talkin NASCAR. I'm your host, Andrew. Great to be back after being away for a couple days. Spent my weekend with my family on a little 4-day trip. So I'm back, and my first day back on the job, back on the show, is I got to report on the Talladega playoff race in the round of 8. And this was a good race, maybe to kind of get things back going with, I guess. Throw me right into the fire, I guess, because there was some things that maybe were a little bit confusing to me, especially in this race, and maybe confusing to some of you. But regardless, I'm back doing what I do, reporting on the Yellowood 500 from Talladega Superspeedway, the second race of the round of 8. Getting right into the thick of things here, starting out with stage 1, with Michael McDowell leading the way from the pole position in the 71 for Spire Motorsports. I believe now that is his third or fourth pole award at Talladega, at least in the past couple seasons. He did it last year with Front Row Motorsports in the 34 car. I believe he already got a pole on a super speedway this season with Spire in that 71 car, but maybe I might be wrong about this, but I believe this is the first time he's won a pole at Talladega with Spire this season, and it took all the way until the round of 8. Michael McDowell last year was a menace on the pole positions at super speedways. It was kind of the Chase Briscoe of the super speedway pole awards, if you kind of catch the gist of what I'm getting at here. Chase Briscoe winning a bunch of poles so far this year. You getting it? Anyway, let's keep moving here. Talking about stage 1 here. The thing that kind of struck out me the most was that the outside lane, and the really high outside lane, the third lane on the outside, was really able to get moving kind of quickly. It took him a couple of laps, like a couple side-by-side laps. About lap 8, Josh Berry was able to make his way forward on that outside lane in that 21 car. Bubba Wallace, Kyle Busch, all challenging Mike McDowell for the lead. I believe McDowell kind of faded back into the top 5 a little bit more, like in the 5th place. Joey Logano also had moved his way forward from starting 14th, needing a good day after coming in below the cut line, but he got off to a good start in that 22 car, that bright yellow 22 Shell Pennzoil Ford Mustang. And another thing that kind of emerged as we got deeper and deeper into this first run in stage 1 is that there was 2 packs that were actually kind of forming, which I'm gonna be truly honest, I don't see very much, like, just in normal green flag conditions outside of after a pit stop cycle. You normally don't see this, and usually after a pit stop cycle on a super speedway, the cars are able to, or the 2 packs, I should say, after coming off of pit road, are usually able to build back up speed and, like, kind of conglomerate together again. One pack usually has more speed than the other, one pits before the other. So they're able to come together pretty quickly, I would say. But in this case, this was just pure getting shuffled out of line. I'm pretty sure some cars got checked up on the outside after a third lane formed, and Chase Elliott was in that group. Denny Hamlin, last week's winner, was also in that group. So you had 2 packs. Like, I think it was like 30 cars, maybe 27-ish cars in that lead pack leading the way, and you had the rest of the field kind of hanging back. And some of those guys didn't really want to hang back. Like William Byron was wanting to hang back. Ryan Blaney got caught up back there and was thinking, no, what am I doing back here? I don't want to be in the back. I don't want to be disconnected from that front group. Chase Elliott didn't want to be back there either. So that was definitely something I had never seen before. But besides all that, it was a pretty orderly stage 1 all up until we got our first wreck of the day. But before I get to that, we got to our first green flag pit stop cycle, and Chase Briscoe, Brad Keselowski, I believe, got called for some penalties. Mike McDowell as well got called for some penalties, I believe, as well. Chase Briscoe had too fast entering pit road. BJ McLeod also got a penalty for too fast entering. Kyle Busch got a too fast exiting pit road. And Brad Keselowski, I said he got a penalty. He had a slow stop because he overshot his pit stall and had to back up, ended up having a 9-second pit stop. Not what he needed at all. But then we'd move on to lap 52, and we would get our first crash of the day. Maybe kind of the big one. It would end up probably being the big one of the day, spoiler alert. But Noah Gragson leading the outside lane with Eric Jones in tow, gets a bad shot from Eric Jones heading into turn 3. Very treacherous, that turn 3 entrances with that tunnel bump right there. Very common at some of these tracks. You have those bumps with tunnels running under the track. But in this case, Noah Gragson in that 4 car for Front Row Motorsports leading the way. Gets a bad shove by Eric Jones, just trying to get too aggressive, trying to push Noah out to the lead. Ends up spinning Noah into AJ Allmendinger. AJ Allmendinger gets sent hard up into the outside wall. Big impact for AJ with that right side driver or right side passenger side of his car. Ends up pulling back down the racetrack, actually like leaking oil, I believe, and ended up having his car catch on fire after coming to a stop on the apron near the entrance of pit road. But AJ climbed out of his car, was visibly shaken after getting out of his car. Was okay, was checked and released from the infield care center. Didn't have to go to the hospital after the race. So glad that AJ is okay. As well, they also caught up Austin Cindric, Austin Dillon, Justin Haley, Chase Elliott, Eric Jones, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. all got collected. Big wreck. Took out Chase Elliott pretty much after having some contact with Cindric. It looked like to me that Cindric kind of came down on Elliott, and Elliott did nothing wrong. He got some really good information from a spotter of Trey Poole up on the spotter stand, which spotters are very critical at Talladega and all drafting tracks, if I haven't mentioned that before. They are the biggest component to whether you get caught up in a wreck or not. But Chase Elliott slowed way up, but Cindric just basically came down on his nose and sent Chase Elliott spinning down into Austin Dillon. Absolutely destroyed the front end of Elliott's car. I believe blew the radiator out as well, and he was just leaking the water as he came back down to pit road. And his crew tried to get that car fixed, but nothing they can do. No amount of sawing off the fenders could do anything to fix the problems for Chase Elliott. He would be done early in stage 1, not what he needed after coming in below the cut line, already having dug himself a pretty deep hole after Las Vegas, not doing himself any favors. We'll take a look at the playoff grid very, very soon later on in this show, but not what you wanted if you're Chase Elliott early on in this race. But we would get back racing for a 1-lap shootout in stage 1 to end stage 1, I would say. Joey Logano leading from the inside, Ty Gibbs on the outside. And long story short, Ty Gibbs, after battling with Tyler Reddick, would end up winning stage 1. I believe Gibbs, that was I'm not sure how many stage wins that is for Ty Gibbs. I'm gonna have to actually look at that real quick in real time. Well, I'll be darned. That is Ty Gibbs' first stage win of the season, collecting those 10 playoff points. Man, if Ty Gibbs just got this maybe at Talladega earlier in the year in the spring race, maybe Ty Gibbs would be in the playoffs. You never know. But Gibbs would win stage 1, followed by Tyler Reddick, John Hunter Nemechek in the 42 for Legacy Motor Club. Toyota top 3. Very impressive. Ryan Blaney in 4th, getting some crucial stage points. Bubba Wallace in 5th. Joey Logano also getting some stage points in 6th. Zane Smith in 7th. Michael McDowell in 8th. His teammate of Carson Hocevar in 9th. And Christopher Bell scooping up that last stage point in 10th. A couple playoff drivers who did not get stage points in stage 1. William Byron, Kyle Larson, Denny Hamlin did not get any stage points. Chase Briscoe neither as well. And then Chase Elliott, of course, after wrecking out, did not get any stage points. He would not get any stage points throughout the rest of the day. Moving on, though, into stage 2 after the under yellow pit stop cycle. Ty Dillon in the 10 car for Calling Racing after being involved in the last week's crash at Las Vegas with William Byron would lead the way with Chris Buescher on his outside, and Buescher would actually get a big push on that restart and would get to the lead, followed by Kyle Busch and Josh Berry as well. Just 2 laps later would get that outside lane starting to roll once again. And a thing that kind of that stuck out to me, and I don't know if this really stuck out to me in previous super speedway races throughout the year, like at Daytona. I think Daytona, the summer race, I should say, the outside lanes were able to kind of get formed up very quickly, especially the 3rd lane, which is very interesting despite how narrow it is at Daytona compared to Talladega. But regardless, here at Talladega, that 3rd outside lane was able to really get moving, and Josh Berry once again would get the ball rolling with that 3rd lane and quickly move up to the outside. And pretty soon, that 3rd outside lane and the middle lane, the top 2 lanes, were really actually start to able to move forward more, and the inside lane started to stall out a little bit more. You could see that those 2 outside lanes, I should say, were really able to carry that momentum off the corners and down the back straightaway, while the inside lane really could not carry that momentum. They really needed some good pushes to really move forward and carry that momentum down the straightaways. And on lap 78, we would get a dose of who the heck are those guys leading the way. You'd have Anthony Alfredo for the part-time Beard Motorsports in the 62 car. Beard Motorsports, a single car, small team, having an alliance with Hendrick Motorsports, I believe, just leasing engines with Anthony Alfredo full-time Xfinity veteran, I should say. And then you got Riley Herbst, the rookie for 2311 Racing, who has had a just an abysmal season. Those two were leading the way on lap 78. So that was very, very funny. And to his credit, Anthony Alfredo was able to kind of lead the way for a little bit as Chase Briscoe would actually start to get into the fold here. And for the most part, stage two would be pretty orderly, I would say. You would have two lanes pretty much, the outside, far outside lane and the middle lane, and then the inside lane was virtually non-existent. And Kyle Busch in the 8 car for Richard Childress Racing, after qualifying up inside the top 10, very good qualifying effort, actually out-qualified up inside the top 10, ended up leading some laps. And Kyle Busch, would lead 20 laps so far in the day, and it would be the most for Richard Childress Racing that they would lead at Talladega since October of 2011. So been a little while for Richard Childress Racing to be up front at Talladega, but this would be the first time that Kyle Busch had led laps in quite a little time, and him qualifying up inside the top 5 would be his best qualifying effort since Michigan back in the summer. Next, we would get on to our next cycle of green flag pit stops, and you would have some smaller groups coming in, but you would have one big group, and containing Shane Van Gisbergen, road course veteran, especially very good at underbraking in the road course side of things. But SVG would actually get spun coming to pit road after running over some weepers in the track. So now weepers, for those who aren't aware of what weepers may be on the racetrack, especially in between two kind of pieces of asphalt, you have those little cracks, right? So you had some showers earlier in the day at Talladega, and that water kind of collects there. And SVG, coming to pit road, actually ran over them with the left side tires and didn't have enough grip and ended up sliding to his right into pit road, ended up getting stuck in the wet grass and not being able to move after popping all of his tires. And a caution would come out late in stage 2 once again, kind of similar to what happened in stage 1. So that was a little bit interesting to me, though, that you'd have two cautions, not nearly the same profile as one another. You have stage 1 obviously being the big one of the day, and again, spoiler, it was the only big one. And then you got SVG, a single car spin coming to pit road, getting stuck in the grass, and that was a caution that would be very, very late in the stage. So that was very interesting, but two very late cautions in the stages would shake up the field very much for sure. But those who had come down pit road when SVG spun actually finished their pit stop, and Josh Berry had to come back down pit road to fix a wiring issue, an electrical issue, so not very good. And Michael McDowell got a notable penalty for vehicle interference on that pit stop. But we had jumped to the restart. Chase Briscoe would lead the way, and it was only a 4-lap sprint to the end of the stage, a little bit longer, but still Chase Briscoe was able to hold on for the most part up until Kyle Larson was able to move his way up to the front. Actually gave Chase Briscoe a pretty good bump in the tri-oval and sent Chase Briscoe up the track, made a great save, but that would allow Kyle Larson to really move his way forward until Chase Briscoe would end up pulling up alongside and pulling him back and would win stage 2, and Larson finished second after a brilliant effort. And Kyle Larson has slowly gotten better on super speedways, where historically he hasn't been very good on super speedways, but Larson would get a second place, Carson Hosfar in third, Byron in fourth after not getting stage points. Bell would get a 5th place in stage 2. Gibbs, stage 1 winner, would finish in 6th. Todd Gilliland in 7th. Ryan Blaney in 8th, getting some more stage points. John Hunter Nemechek in 9th. Alex Bowman in 10th. And then Reddick being the first guy out. Joey Logano had fallen all the way back to 18th, got kind of stuck back in traffic, not really able to move his way forward. And other drivers that did not get some stage points in the playoffs, it was only Hamlin and Chase Elliott. Everyone else did get stage points that are in the playoffs, including Blaney, Bell, Byron, Larson, and Briscoe. Stage 3 would get underway, though, with John Hunter Nemechek leading from the outside with Kyle Busch on the inside. And Tyler Reddick actually chose to start behind John Hunter Nemechek, and that would give Nemechek a pretty big push, and he would clear for the lead on lap 127. And pretty much we would just get a pretty straightforward little 40 lap run to about 100, lap 167, I believe, and lap 166, and it was pretty much 2x2. Joey Logano actually moved his way up to the front with Ryan Blaney, Ross Chastain, and Christopher Bell. Chastain, who had kind of started in the rear of the field, was able to move his way forward. Michael McDowell worked his way back forward. Anthony Alfredo was once again back up in the running. Bubba Wallace, Ty Gibbs, Nemechek. Those were the pretty big heavy hitters, at least on this first initial run here in stage 3. But lap 166, Cody Ware would actually spin on the apron in turns 1 and 2 after losing an engine, so he had kind of pulled off the racetrack, but ended up getting spinning out on that apron, bringing out a caution, not being able to move forward. We'd have some more yellow flag pit stops. Ryan Blaney would actually get first off pit road, followed by Logano and Tyler Gillen, the three extremely good super speedway racers. Blaney winning at Daytona in the summer, not allowing anyone else to make the playoffs. Todd Gilliland has been known now for his entire Cup career, I would say, has been a very good super speedway racer, and Logano, one of the best defensive drivers in the NASCAR Cup Series, leading the way. Blaney would lead from the outside. Blaney would lead from the inside. Gillen from the outside, and Logano would choose to start behind Blaney and give Blaney a pretty good shove out to the lead. And then we'd have Kyle Larson get a pretty big shot from Daniel Suarez only a couple laps later, and that would push Todd Gilliland to the lead, and Larson was able to move his way forward. Larson would end up clearing for the lead, and Zane Smith on the most outside lane would actually make a big charge toward the front on lap 177. That third lane, it was about maybe 5 laps into the run. That outside lane was able to move forward, so maybe not quite as quick as some of the other ones, like Josh Berry was able to do in stage 2, but still that third lane was able to get going a lot quicker than a lot of the other races, which, again, something that kind of stuck out to me in this race. But Zane Smith in that 38 car would join his 34 front row teammate of Todd Gilliland, with Noah Gragson being out of the race. I'm sorry, Noah. But Daniel Suarez would get a pretty big shove. Kyle Larson, so it would be 3 wide for the lead between Suarez, Larson, and Zane Smith, 2 non-playoff drivers looking to spoil it, and Kyle Larson on the inside, a guy that's never won on a super speedway race and has not really had much success either way. And they would have to navigate Alex Bowman, slow car having some engine issues. Daniel Suarez actually would get caught up behind Alex Bowman, have to jump out of the throttle and would have to drop all the way back, while Zane Smith and Ross Chastain, Suarez's teammate, would actually get up to the front. But here is where some of the intensity would start to really turn up. After Larson gave a pretty big shove to Todd Gilliland to get him out to the lead, Chase Briscoe and Bubba Wallace were able to move their way up to the front, and Briscoe and Wallace were able to clear themselves out in front, while Larson was able to get a run off turn 4 and get Chris Buescher out to the front as well. And it pretty much became a Briscoe and Larson showdown for a couple laps, and then Buescher would actually get to the lead. Byron and Larson, 2 Hendrick teammates, 2 guys in the playoffs looking to lock themselves into the playoffs. Briscoe actually fell back a little bit. Same with Bubba Wallace. They both got shuffled back a little bit, and Buescher actually got himself to the lead. And Chris Buescher, a very good super speedway racer, was leading the way, and then we get another caution for Chris Buescher, who wrecked from the lead after William Byron having Carson Hocevar in tow on that outside lane. Bubba Wallace on the inside, Kyle Larson as well underneath Buescher. Buescher trying to block all 3 lanes. Byron getting a big shove from Carson Hocevar, very aggressive. As always, Carson Hocevar, big shove from Hocevar, sends him into the back of Chris Buescher, not aligned with those bumpers, going at 180 miles an hour, actually over that, 200 pretty much. That sends Buescher spinning to the inside. A big impact for Chris Buescher. Visibly on the onboard camera, it looked like it hurt for Chris Buescher. He was like wincing as he was getting his window net down. He was just in so much pain, it looked like. I can only imagine what that impact felt like. And Buescher, after getting spun, his eyes went wide. Man, must have been scary to think like, oh shoot, I'm spinning now. I was just leading. What happened? That was definitely tough for Chris Buescher. Did nothing wrong and just ends up getting spun by no fault of his own by Hocevar and Byron. And Byron, I feel like Hocevar just being aggressive. Like, this is where the spotters also come into play. Just for another example, the spotters need to, in this case, a really good spotter would be one that would say, okay, the car in front of you has this amount of car lengths to the leader, the guy in front of him. And that's when you know, okay, I should push this guy. I should really, really get on his bumper, push him out to lead if he's clear. That's what I should do. And Hocevar's spotter did not do that in this case, and that's what ultimately ended up getting Buescher spun out by Byron. Because Byron, I mean, to his credit, wasn't really driving as hard as Hocevar. He had a lot of drag on his bumper until Buescher kind of washed up in front of him. But Byron, like, he wouldn't be a guy that would be pounding on the back bumper of Buescher like that. So Byron, no fault done here, but it was really Hocevar that kind of did it. How many times have I said that, and how many times has someone else said that, and saying that, oh, Hocevar did this, Hocevar did that, and ended up costing so-and-so their race, and this time it was Chris Buescher. But we were getting very, very close to this race. When that caution came out, we were only 4 laps away from the end, lap 190. But after that caution, Blaney, Logano, and Michael McDowell and Brad Keselowski all had to come down to pit road because they could not make it on field. And for most of these guys, it would be tough for them to all make it on field. They were saving, no swerving, no warming up the tires, no getting the marbles, keeping their tires clean. None of that. You had to save, save, save. Just let the car roll under caution, see how much you can get out of it. And that would be some interesting. Like, that was, I feel like for me, that really didn't kind of, I guess, didn't really play as much of a factor. It was more so who would have the runs, who was going to be able to block the lanes. The fuel strategy wasn't the guy taking the big spotlight here. It was who could control the lanes and who was going to be able to survive at Talladega. That was really what it was, which is a nice change of pace. And that's what we have gone away from over these last couple of weeks. Not the fuel strategy, but what will happen on track is going to be the big question, which I'm all for it. But we would get to our first overtime restart here. Byron lead from the outside with his Hendrick teammate of Kyle Larson on the outside, and they would be side by side all the way until the tri-oval. And coming to the white flag, Kyle Larson would end up getting past of William Byron, and Bubba Wallace would charge to the outside of Kyle Larson, bringing Chase Briscoe with them. And both those guys kind of were faded back towards the a little bit earlier in the race, but now they were starting to work their way back forward. White flag in the air, and down the back straightaway, Kyle Larson would actually run out of fuel in front of his teammate William Byron, stacking up that entire bottom lane, kind of taking Byron out of the equation, while having Briscoe and Wallace to the lead as well, having Todd Gilliland out in front as well. But Briscoe would dive to the inside of his teammate Bubba Wallace, take the lead, and it would be side by side through the tri-oval. Actually, Briscoe would pull in front of his teammate of Ty Gibbs. Gibbs fighting for his first win of his career into the short suit, into the tri-oval. Gibbs on the back bumper of Chase Briscoe, and you have Bubba Wallace as well, pushing Todd Gilliland, trying to get to that front, but Briscoe would end up holding off all of them. Would get to the checkered flag as Byron actually behind them would, ironically enough, get spun by Carson Hocevar in the tri-oval. Hocevar just really laying it on the back bumper of William Byron and ends up spinning out William Byron. And Byron, on that last spin, lost 24 points in just a quarter of a mile. That is insane. All the good runs, everything he did to work his way forward to gain points on that cut line after getting wrecked at Las Vegas last week, all for it to disappear. Man, that is really, really tough for William Byron. But Byron ended up finishing, I believe, in the 20th position. He would fall down like 24 positions or something. He'd finish in 25th. We'll take a look at the rest of the finishing results right now. Again, Briscoe would get the win. Gilliland would finish runner-up and second place. How many times have you seen Todd Gilliland finishing in second? That's how good Todd Gilliland is at racing the super speedways. Led 11 laps. You'll notice at super speedways as well, there's not going to be a guy that leads the most laps. The guy that led the most laps was Joey Logano with 35. The second closest was Kyle Busch with 26. Busch having a pretty solid day, I must say. As well, Ty Gibbs helped his teammate in the playoffs. I guess whatever that driver's meeting after New Hampshire at JGR really kind of stuck with him because he didn't kind of shove Briscoe out of the way. He was saying, "Okay, I'll be a team player. I'll shove you to the win. I'll shove you to the win, Chase. Go win the championship, buddy." So that was interesting to see the Toyota teammates not really racing each other like they would any other competitor here after what Hamlin and Wallace kind of had that run in at Kansas. Hamlin and Gibbs. Bubba Wallace would finish in fourth. Cole Custer for Haas Factory Team finishes in fifth. Runner-up at Daytona, just barely missed out on a playoff position at Daytona. Finishes fifth here as well. Did really good today. Cole Custer kept that car out of trouble. Top 5 result. Carson Hocevar spun out, both inadvertently spun out, I guess, Chris Buescher, and also spun out William Byron to get a top 10. So there you go for Carson Hocevar. Reddick in 7th. Christopher Bell, big points for him at finishing in 8th. Kind of quiet all day long. He was up front for the most part during this race, but didn't lead any laps at all. Just kind of hanging around inside that top 10 all day long. Zane Smith for Front Row Motorsports joins his teammate of Gilliland inside the top 10 with a 9th place finish. Brad Keselowski, so good here at Talladega, finishes with a top 10. How about Shane Van Gisbergen in 11th? Same with his teammate of Suarez and Chastain, all Trackhouse ducks in a row here with 11th, 12th, and 13th, all here inside the top 15. SVG's been good on ovals. He was doing pretty well at Daytona, if I remember, back in the summer, back in August, but Here now, SVG actually got up to the front and was able to stay up there for a little bit before getting shuffled back. So SVG, very good day overall for the New Zealander on only his fourth NASCAR Cup Series Super Speedway race. Very good from him. And then John Hunter Nemechek in 14th, led 11 laps today. Pretty solid from him. And then Ryan Preece, after his pretty gnarly flip at Daytona in the 500 this year, finishes with the top 15. Joey Logano, after leading all those laps, finishes in 16th. All that track position he got early in the race, just threw it all away at the end, finishes with a borderline top 15 finish. Man, that's tough for Logano. We'll take a look at the playoff grid here in just a second. Michael McDowell finishes 17th. How about Casey Mears finishing in 18th for Garage 66 in the 66 Ford Mustang after starting dead last in the field after being one lap down? How about Casey Mears getting an 18th finish? Looking at the rest of the field, Anthony Alfredo and Austin Hill both were up at the front fair bit in this race, finishing 21st and 22nd. Blaney and Hamlin and Byron and Larson, actually, 4 playoff drivers in a row, finished in 23rd all the way to 26th. And looking at the rest of this, Buescher finishes in 30th after having a really good run. Josh Berry had some good speed today, was working his way through the field pretty well, finishes in 33rd. And then Chase Elliott down in last place after getting wrecked. Not what he needed at all. But there's a look at your finishing results. That was pretty much the whole recap. I forgot to mention that. I pretty much just recapped the entire race for you there after before I got to the finishing results. But there you go. Briscoe got the win as well here at Talladega, locking himself into the championship 4. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the playoff standings. Obviously now Briscoe with his win joins his teammate of Hamlin, locking themselves into the championship 4. Going into this round, I didn't say it on this show again. I did not have Chase Briscoe making the championship 4. I would think it would be Hamlin, Bell, and Larson and Byron. Maybe Blaney going into this. Actually, you know what? I probably would have picked Hamlin, Bell, Larson, and Blaney just because of how well this round kind of shaped up for Ryan Blaney and how consistent he's been overall. But this round's kind of thrown me a curveball, I'm not going to lie. So much can happen with so few drivers, I should say. But now, Christopher Bell, 37 points above the cut line. He's not a total lock-in. I mean, a lot can go wrong at Martinsville. Just point at what happened at last year's Martinsville cutoff race with that whole penalty and everything. Kyle Larson is the last driver in, 36 points above the cut line. Again, that's a pretty good cushion. Again, a lot can go wrong, but I think a lot would have to really, really go wrong if Kyle Larson was to miss the round of or the championship 4. So, looking at the bottom 5 or the bottom 4, excuse me. Byron 36 out, Logano 38 out. Like, he didn't really do himself any favors. It looked like he was going to be doing himself a big favor, digging himself out of that hole after Las Vegas, but not really. Blaney dug himself an even bigger hole, and then Chase Elliott is 62 points out. Blaney's 47, Logano 38. Realistically, Blaney and Elliott are going to have to win their way in. Logano probably is going to have to win his way in. Byron, just in one race, is going to have to win his way in. So, a lot on the line. Going into Martinsville, I would have to watch out for those 2 Penske cars because both Logano and Blaney have just been so good on those short, flat ovals, but don't rule out Chase Elliott and William Byron at all. Byron was very good in the spring race. Elliott has been very good at Martinsville in the past. His teammate of Larson's been very good. Bell, anybody that is not locked in has a chance to win Martinsville, in my opinion. Logano, surprisingly, Logano's the guy I'm, least trusting out of this group of 6 that are going for the win at Martinsville to for sure lock themselves into the championship 4. But there you go. Look at the playoff standings if you're looking at them at home. Again, Byron out by 36, Logano out by 38, Blaney out by 47, and Chase Elliott out by 62. Everybody in a must-win scenario right now, while Bell 37 points in and Larson 36 points in as well. Now let's wrap up this episode of Talkin NASCAR with my Triple R scale, my race recap rating, my Triple R scale, like I like to call it here. This race from Talladega was fine. I might have overrated last week at Las Vegas just a tiny bit, but that finish at the end definitely made it a lot better because no one definitely made it out. But here at Talladega, this race was very interesting. It felt like more of a traditional super speedway race, at least from what I've seen. The next gen car on super speedways is not very good. Not very good at all. Atlanta's probably the best because you're able to get those mega runs, have those runs on the outside, tight corners, get those runs on the outside and the inside. It's constantly moving. Here at Talladega, it was pretty good. I probably would have likened it to the spring race a little bit more. Daytona in the August race was very, very good. The Daytona 500, not very good. So the super speedway racing has gotten a lot better. With the race product wise, you're able to see the 3 lanes constantly moving. It does take a lap or two if you're really going for it to have that third outside lane really starting to get it going, as opposed to it takes like 20 laps before someone actually jumps out of line with help. And it helps that Talladega is a really wide track, and it really helped that the inside lane was really the worst lane because the outside and the middle lanes were able to carry so much speed, like I said earlier in this episode. So that was very interesting to see. I probably, like, at the beginning, after, like, the first 2 stages, would have probably given this race, like, a 65 to a 55 rating. I'm feeling a little bit generous, though. The finish was very, very good. I thought the racing got better as the aggression kinda picked up. If we just could see all the teams being very aggressive from the get-go, I think the super speedway racing would be, at least for me, on a scale of this was a B to A range race, maybe the C to B plus range, because still with the car having so much drag, it's gonna really hurt the racing product overall as a whole. But for this race, the Yellowood 500 from Talladega, I'm gonna give it a 75%, pretty even grade right here. Is that an overrating? Maybe. I'm always up for some super speedway racing, like despite how flawed the car is. For me, I'm just like soaking in the novelty that NASCAR, it's so cool, for me at least. So maybe my opinion's a little bit more skewed. You're gonna have to probably go around to some more distinguished content creators in the NASCAR world to get like a true accurate rating if you wanted me. So maybe I should shut up so I'd stop glazing it a little bit more. But there you go. 75% on the triple R scale for my Talking NASCAR race recap of the Yellowwood 500 from Talladega Superspeedway. Let me know down in the comments what you would have given this race. Would you have rated it higher, rated it lower? Let me know down in the comment section below. But that will do it for me, folks. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Hope you enjoyed your weekend. For me, it was a pretty long weekend, so I had a lot of fun this weekend with my family. Glad to be back, though. I'll be back very, very, very soon with more episodes, more NASCAR that I got to talk about very, very soon. Probably going to be back with another episode very, very soon and like later this week. Hopefully, if you did enjoy this, please go like and subscribe if you're listening on YouTube. If you're listening on any other podcast platforms, please consider giving this show a follow so you never missed another episode. And if you're listening on YouTube as well, go check out Talking Sports with Miles and Andrew. Same for all of you guys if you're listening on other podcast platforms. It'll be Talking Sports W, Miles and Andrew, the other show I co-host with. Talking about sports just overall broadly, not limited to NASCAR. So if you're into that more than just NASCAR, go check out that show. Highly encourage it. It's a lot of fun. We just posted an episode a little while ago. Our most recent episode was, I believe, recapping week 6 of the NFL. So go check that out. And if you like this show more specifically, I have a ton of episodes on this show, like over 60 at this point, that you can go check out. So I encourage you to go do that if you did like this episode. But I'll see you very, very soon. Hope you enjoyed this episode, and I will see you very, very soon. Have a great day, everybody.